Oh. Oh. Welcome to Meaningful Mornings. An amazing thinker, his name, Swami Akhandananda. He was often referred to as a Maharaja, a king of kings. I was listening to his sharing on a verse from Katha Upanishad. In the Upanishad, what is shared, it is harder to become enlightened, to be joyous in Pitraloka, Gandharva Loka, Brahma Loka, that it's most efficient and effective to be enlightened, to be joyous in the Martya Loka. That is the dimension we live in. Technicalities, fine. But some of you, whenever you hear the phrase Pitraloka, the dimension of ancestors, we think it's a different space, it's a different time. What Swami Akhandananda shared, Pitraloka is where people go when all they do is think of their family. So it's not really a different space or time. Many of us, all we do is think of our family. That's being in Pitraloka. You can't be joyous then. This morning, when I was reading to Vyasa, and he was just looking out, and I said, Vyasa, what are you thinking about? And he said, nothing. If I ask all of you, what are you thinking about? On and on and on and on and on, correct? Mostly about our family. Gandharva Loka. The Gandharvas are the artists in heaven, the musicians, the singers. Swami Akhandananda shared, we are in Gandharva Loka when our whole life is dedicated just to art. Dancing, singing. Many are like that, no? And if it's not art, it's their professions. Working 70, 80, 90, 100 hours a week. You're in Gandharva Loka. And Brahma Loka is where you have to work extremely hard to reach this dimension, and then you slowly get enlightened. And Swami Akhandananda's reference here is people who focus on position, to be the CEO, to be popular. You have to work so hard to do that, but you have to keep working hard, correct? Because that's what competition is like. I'm sharing this with you because we tend to justify that we're not living for Pitraloka, Gandharva Loka, Brahma Loka, when we actually are. And that's why we need these workshops to help us to not justify. The Prince Arjuna of chapter 1 is a justifying Prince Arjuna. And you will find very soon that he stops being a justifying Prince Arjuna. In our last verse, the one who has completed yoga, then that person is nirveda. Nirveda means they don't need the karma kanda or the jnana kanda because they're independently joyous. Once you've arrived at your destination, you turn your GPS off. share differently. Nirveda means without differences. If there are no differences, if there's no separation, that also means there's no dependency. You can only depend if there's a difference, if there's a separation. But if there's not, since you're not depending, what are you doing? You are being then. Another word for depending is becoming. Nirveda, not depending means being. And one more insight into the last verse. The one who is completing or has completed yoga, they live by vairagya. Vairagya in English means independence, but the etymology of this, raga means likes. What comes with that? Dislikes. Viraga, not having likes or dislikes. That's how you refine living by yoga. But this can't be held in a vacuum. This viraga has to be directed to anuraga. Anuraga means love. What is it that we all love the most? Joy. Love who you are. Love your nature the most. That is the completion of dispassion. Another word for viraga is dispassion. By being passionate towards life, towards infinity. Each of these verses you must reflect upon. If you're not reflecting upon these, then you're only taking the technical aspect of Bhagavad Gita, but not the personal aspect. We continue, verse 53. I shared with all of you, 51, 52, 53 have the same sentiment. Shruti vipratipannate yadastasyati nischala samadhav achala buddhihi tada yogam avapsyasi. Te. What is the Hindi word for te? Tu. Shri Krishna is speaking to you directly. Shruti means the Veda or what you hear. Vipratipanna, which means you're perplexed. That's the English translation. Or you are still with the Veda. You are still with what you heard. This is the translation, personalizing this. Vipratipanna means one who has transcended. One who has completed yoga has transcended the need for the Shruti meaning the Veda. And so we're clear in a most personal sense. Your ear can only engage in hearing, correct? Your ear can't see, I hope. Or I hope it can, that'd be amazing, but I'm quite sure that it can't. And so the implication here is, our ear can only hear, our ear can't do anything else, meaning our sense organs can never know our nature, can never know the spirit. That's what is meant here, that one's hearing is transcendent. The practice for us is, don't depend on your sense organs for completion. It's not going to happen. Next quarter. Yada. Remember the if-then model. Stasyati nischala. Stasyati means standing. Nischala, unmoving. There's lots of descriptive words like this. Shri Krishna here is referring to our intellect. When the mind is purified, it will start to follow the intellect. How do you know that's happening? Your mind becomes quieter. The more decisive one's intellect is, the quieter one's mind is. When the intellect is purified, it will follow the scripture. Will follow the script. Where is this script taking us? Not to be extrovert, but rather towards the spirit. Same ideas continued in the third quarter. And now he specifies the buddhihi is achala. It is steady. In what? Samadho means in the self, in happiness. The mind follows the intellect follows the scripture is directing us to our nature. The intellect that is extrovert is one that instructs. Right now, if you have a lot of things to do today, and your intellect is not purified or introvert, even though we're studying a subjective science, you're already instructing yourself on what you have to do later today. So here in this third quarter, Shri Krishna is sharing the right intellect does not instruct, nor does it inquire anymore. The intellect has become still. An introvert intellect, a sattvic intellect will still inquire, who am I? Where is happiness? But if the intellect has become still, that means it knows who it is. That means it's found happiness. If any of you wonder why I use terms like quiet mind, that's pretty obvious. Why do I use the word still intellect? Because of these verses. Deeper than a quiet mind is a still intellect. Tada, therefore, yogam avapsyasi, one shall attain. Yogam here means the fulfillment of yoga. One will be joyous. And so maybe we can change the word in our minds to yukta. Yoga is the means, yukta is the end. If this verse describes your intellect, you will be yukta. You will be integrated with infinity. Sharing a personal insight, and then we'll move on to application. This weekend, I shared with all of you to enjoy the struggle. Enjoy the struggle of growing up, evolving. When you enjoy this, you will reach the ends. But if you don't enjoy the growing up, the evolution, we'll never reach yukta. On Saturday, I went to our local track and it was very hot, I think for so many of you. And I ran 10 kilometers. And I was thinking about these verses. I set out to run 10 kilometers, but while I was running, I was only focusing on, let's say, a lap at a time. And every time I drifted to the 10 kilometer mark, I found myself enjoying that run less. I kept thinking, this is a track, it's perfect. I can just get off the track right now and sit on that bench. And so I brought my mind back to, I have to enjoy this struggle. So I collapsed at the 10 kilometers. I made it, but I collapsed at that 10K mark. To application. On Friday, your application was to come up with 4 insights to help you be devoted to yoga. In verse 47, Sri Krishna gives 4 insights. These have become quite popular, but it is only when you personalize these will you practice these. On Saturday, your application was you feeling you have the key to happiness. And when you feel you have this, you become more confident. You become more secure. If you're ever walking to your car in the dark and you're struggling to find your key, don't you feel less confident and less secure? But once you unlock that car and you sit in that car, you just feel better, correct? We have the key to happiness. Yesterday, I asked you to reflect on raga, viraga, anuraga. When you love a person, that's called raga. Because you love a person to the exclusivity of other people, correct? When you love a purpose, that's called viraga. Because I love this purpose, I have less likes and dislikes towards people. When you love the presence, existence, awareness, joy, that's anuraga. That was a cool framework, correct? Person, purpose, presence. And now your application, which I'm very excited to share. Today, we have completed 100 verses of Bhagavad Gita. We're 1/7 through this divine map. Make sure you're using Swami Chinmayananda's Holy Gita. That is available to you. Tomorrow, we complete 400 mornings of meaningful mornings. And tomorrow, we come back, as in Prince Arjuna comes back. He said he's not going to speak. Tomorrow, he will ask more definitively, how will I be when I'm like you, Sri Krishna? And then in this gracious plan, Wednesday, June 30th, which is Puja Guruji Swami Tejamayananda's birthday, we begin the most powerful and amazing part of Bhagavad Gita. I didn't intentionally plan for this. I sort of did only this weekend by continuing with our verses. And so your application is be extremely grateful. 100 verses, 400 mornings, Swami Tejamayananda's Jayanti, we start the Sthita Prajna Lakshanas. Don't just be ordinarily grateful. Be extraordinarily grateful. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Be safe, be sound, be serene, be happiness.